All right, here we go. This is on. I love the Zoom stuff.
3:30, are we all ready for us to start the meeting? Can I call the meeting to order? Yep, thanks. All right, this is the regular meeting, Thursday, July 8th of the Forest and Beach Commission. Can I have a roll call?
Sarah Burling,
Here.
Michael Cadell. Absent, Darlene Mosley,
Here.
JC Myers,
Here.
Brian Sowers.
Here.
And just a reminder, when you're not speaking, if you can please mute yourself. Thank you.
All right. We probably all separately toured did an inspection tour of the sites that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I'm calling for any extraordinary business that we need to discuss. Public appearances. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern, not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comments shall be limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise established by the commission. Matters not appearing on the commission's agenda will not receive action at this meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Persons are not required to give their names, but it is helpful for speakers to state their names so that it may be identified in the minutes of the meeting. We're open for public appearances. Ramey?
Hello, I'm Ramey Allard, the president of the Friends of Carmel Forest. And I just wanted to update you on what's been happening with the Friends of Carmel Forest. We have combined efforts with the Carmel Cares Group, and Dale Byrne has some selected volunteers helping us with the Forest Theater trees that we planted. There's 40 trees there that we were monitoring and watering and getting them underway, and he's doing a great job with that, and we're very thrilled that he's taken that upon himself to do. We also met with Sarah last week and talked about some sites to plant some new cypress trees along the scenic area between just beyond Santa Lucia south and north up to 8th Avenue. And we've identified 9 sites that we're going to start planting some cypress. We are actually abandoning a couple of the vandalized sites, and we are putting the cypress trees down the slope a little bit. So I want to thank you, Sarah, for supporting us and taking the time out of your busy day to do that for us. We don't want to meet any resistance with our planting, so that's why we started with Sarah. And we'll be starting that next week. And then we're monitoring 118 trees currently every month, our group of volunteers, and we are just noticing that things are continually dry, and there's really no rhyme or reason as to, why they're dry. We monitor at different times because, occasionally we can see that the water truck was just there. So we say, okay, we get it. But most of the time our things are dry. So we hope that we can put more effort into watering these little trees that we're trying to bring along. And then we hope that the trend of replanting trees in the city removed trees can soon change to greater than 50%. We have historically this year been each month at less than 50% of replanting removed trees. And we really, really want to reforest things. And so we're watching that and hope, and we're trying to do everything we can to help that effort. That's it from Friends of Carmel Forest. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Good. Thank you, Rainey. Any other public comments? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to announcements. No announcements? Yes? Bob?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Three really quick announcements. Next month, our meeting is on August the 19th, which is, I think, the 4th. It's the third Thursday of next month. The reason being is that the 12th, our normal meeting date, is during Car Week. I believe that decision was made in December or January or so. So I just wanted to remind you that the next meeting is on August the 19th. Second, for the August 19th meeting on where it says tour of inspection, now that the COVID restrictions have eased, we will be, if there are any public hearings, any places that we need to see, we'll be doing it together next time in the field, and we'll spell out whatever, 2:30 we meet at the first place, and then 3 o'clock we meet at the second place. So we'll spell that out right there on the agenda. Up until that, for those who are have come today that are not familiar with us, throughout COVID, we've had to have the commissioners inspect the site on their own because of the social distancing requirement, but that's really essentially over. So next month we'll do it all together. And last announcement is in September, as of right now, in September, we'll be able to meet again in the council chambers. That's not 100% definite, but that is the intention. And that's what the city council and planning commission and everybody will start using the city council chambers in September if all goes as planned. And that's all I had.
That's all excellent news. I'm happy to hear all of it. Thank you very much, Bob. Let's see, we'll go to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of commission discussion and/or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. And we have one recommended action, and that's to approve the June 10th, 2021 meeting minutes as presented.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as they're presented.
I'll second it. And we'll have a roll call.
Burling,
Yes.
Mosley,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sowers.
Yes.
Approved. Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving on to public hearings. And our first item is for the approval or denial of an application to remove a magnolia at 4th Avenue 2 northeast of Monteverde Street. And we'll need a staff report from Sarah.
Hi, everyone. So our applicant, Mr. Meitzer, who is on the line with us today, submitted an application in November of 2020 to remove a magnolia that's in the front of his property. At the time, the commission heard the application in December, and the commission ruled to continue the discussion on the application so that Mr. Meitzer could explore other options for repairing the patio that is being disturbed by the tree roots. So the tree in question is a magnolia tree. And you can see here, it's in pretty good health, but it does appear that it is causing the damage to a small landscape wall, as well as raising some of the pavement squares in the patio area. The tree is in good health and could live a long life. However, it does appear that it is causing damage to the patio. Mr. Meitzer reached out to some contractors, and he stated that he learned that replacing the pavers would probably kill the tree. So he's coming back to us after exploring different options and stating that the tree should probably still come out. I think that the tree still has a long life ahead of itself. It's in good shape and good condition with no pests or diseases present, no real structural issues. I think that different construction techniques could be utilized to make the patio flat and still keep the tree in place by using a smaller paving square. You can see here from Mr. Reitzer's photos that the squares are rather large. If a smaller paver would be used, it would be able to contour to the roots, or just putting down a thicker layer of base material underneath the pavers over the roots could also reach the desired end of a flatter walking surface. So does the commission have any questions for me? Okay, Mr. Reitzer is on the line.
Darlene, you're on mute if you.
Unmute. I'm sorry.
That's great.
Unmute. Sarah, I had one question. The construction people said that the pavers would kill the tree, and your suggestion is maybe a different type of paver would work better and not possibly kill the tree.
I believe so. Once the pavers are taken up too, we could look at doing some strategic root pruning that could also provide a flatter surface.
Right.
Okay.
If I may add to that, we did not talk to the same construction contractors that Mr. Meitzer talked to. So we don't have a relationship with that person or our contractors, but we do believe that there are other methods that could be done to reduce any hazards, repair the wall, and keep the tree.
JC?
Thanks, Sarah. That was my question was, did we see any of these? Was there any written contractor reports provided to you with the application?
No, I provided in the packet all of the information that I was provided.
Anybody else from the commission have a question before we, Sarah?
Yeah. Would it be possible as an alternative, Sarah, for them to plant a magnolia where it wouldn't be right near the patio and take that one down?
Yes, anything is possible if you make that a condition of your approval for the permit.
Say that, I didn't understand what you said.
Oh, so that would be possible if you put that in the conditions for your approval of the permit.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else from the commission have a question? And we'll ask Mr. Meitzner if he is ready to talk with us.
Oh, we can't hear you. You have to be taken off of mute.
Okay, now go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Nice to see you again. There is no doubt that this isn't a magnificent magnolia. It's healthy, and like you said, it has no infestation, but it's planted in the wrong place. It's going to run out of dirt. And the roots are searching for water. And I believe you'll agree that the roots generally exceed the canopy of a magnolia. That means that they're within 3 feet of the house, and my plumbing is right under that stairway. I would imagine that's where they're going. But we have some extenuating circumstances. I read here in the Forest and Beach Commission that the health and well-being of our citizens, our residents, is a top priority for the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea. Well, this past year I turned 80. I wish I was healthy as a tree, but I'm not. I have, which causes me to stiffness, slowness, poor balance, and coordination, poor speech, and I have dyskinesia. Times I can't move my feet. I just can't do it. Along with the Parkinson's, I have congestive heart failure, COPD, water in the lungs, and fluid retention. I fell down in the shower because of the Parkinson's, and I have 2 broken knees. So I'm going to Dr. Set currently to get them fixed. I'm taking Eliquis, which is one of the most powerful blood thinners around. If I fall and hit my head, I could bleed out. I fell once in the living room, hit my head, and went to the hospital immediately for a CAT scan. Luckily, I wasn't bleeding.
Long-time resident. You lived here a long time.
Oh yeah, I've lived here 22 years, well, maybe 30, back from 1992. And I would like to read to you what my doctor wrote. It was marked out. It says, Willis Lloyd Meinzer is under my medical care. I have examined him today. Please note that the patient has Parkinson's disease, congestive heart failure, impaired gait, and is on blood thinners, which puts at high risk for falls and bleeding. Please allow him to cut down a tree that is making it very difficult for him to access his home. This was dated April 27th, 2021, and it's Dr. Carlos Ramirez. Also, the magnolia would become a fire hazard. And I talked to firemen about the what's the bridge across the bridge here?
Lincoln.
Oh, the Lincoln Bridge. This is a scary area because they can't get trucks in here to fight anything. And this is definitely a fire hazard. It's just about to touch the house with the canopy. I have a question about cutting up the big pavers. That doesn't make any sense to me because it would make more tips, and I don't understand how that would work. I would like to see that drawn up and shown to me. Now, what's going to happen is if you do decide that the tree's got to stay, even though it's right up against the fence, going to push it over, and the other way it's pushing out the retaining wall. It's a big tree in a space of less than 3 feet. My wife is going to be a caretaker for me and a caretaker for the tree. And I think her. We've been married 46 years. She's a good woman, and she doesn't need to have this done to her at the end of her days. She's almost 80. So I would not be a person that could gloat when that tree goes down. I'll feel bad. We are tree people. We have in our yard planted 3 birch, 2 lime, 3 lemon, and I'm also a biologist by trade. And my biggest fear is the eloquence, because if I fall, hit my head, hit my hip, whatever, I'm going to have a lot of bleeding. And it's my life for the trees, basically. That's all I got to say. I hope you'll judge accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meitzner. Does anybody else want to speak on this issue from the public? Ramey? You're still muted.
I too make that mistake. I'm personally sensitive to Mr. Meitzer's issues. I have a husband who has Parkinson's, and I understand the difficulties that he's experiencing. I'm a tree lover as well. As I looked at all those photos, it's not only going to be, that tree's not only going to be a problem for the Meitzers, it's going to be a problem for 2 other neighbors, because I think I saw a photo that Sarah took from somebody else's garden with the fence in front of it. And it is a sideline problem and ultimately a rear property line problem. I would just ask that, I'd like to know for a fact that he's going to put a safe surface on there to walk, and the only way to keep that tree in a healthy fashion is to open that corner property line with a raised planter that is going to give that tree everything it needs, but everybody's going to have an open corner. So I think it's a tough call with respect to keeping the tree.
Thank you, Ramey. Anyone else from the public? No? Then can we bring it back to the commission for questions or discussion? JC?
Well, thanks. Actually, I had a question for the Meitzner's. Are they still available to answer questions? Okay, thanks. I saw a note from Betty right there. So just in the application to remove the tree, was your intention also to replace the existing pavers? I'm just curious what the whole project process was when you initially applied to have the tree removed.
One of my problems was it's going to be so expensive to replace everything. And if the tree stays, the next people that live here, or maybe even us, may have to redo it again. Yeah, it's all going to be flat.
I'm sorry, you cut that last part cut out. I apologize. I'm up in Tahoe. We just had an earthquake, so my internet is getting having the instability issue. So I do apologize if I missed the last portion. So you said, sir, that you are intending to replace those large pavers that I see from the photos are already up in very bad angles. It looks to me, regardless of whether or not the tree was removed, you could still certainly trip and fall.
The pavers will be removed, and that whole area will be cleaned, flat, and refilled, and then path. And we used to live in Tahoe with the
Shoot, I wish I could catch all that. I don't know why I'm not picking it all up, but
no, I can't catch it either. So I'm sorry. You're breaking in and breaking out. It's a little difficult to.
I think what I ascertained, though, Darlene, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there is an intent, regardless, to replace the existing pavers. Okay, I think that was what I was really looking for. So thanks.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yeah. It is a beautiful magnolia tree. That's an unusual street. So it's not as though many people in the city get the advantage of seeing it. To me, what Mr. Meitzer read from the Forest and Beach information that human health is uppermost. I think that, and the fact that he does have 3 birch trees on his property, as well as the others that he mentioned, I think that they should be able to take this tree out. And maybe it's best for the neighbors also. But I think the quality of life of us humans is still a little more important than the tree, even though it's a special tree.
Darlene, are we still asking questions to the Meitzner's before we bring this back? Okay, just didn't know we were opening up for. It looked like Brian might have a question.
I see his hand up. Brian?
Yeah, so I guess my position on this would be, I think we kind of talked about this a little bit as we were moving into this, is that, I don't think it's a magnolia is not a native Carmel tree like a Monterey pine or a coastal oak. It is a healthy tree, but I think, given the considerations that Ramey brought up, as well as the fact that I think if we made some kind of situation where at least if some replacement tree was planted in a better position on the lot, at least we wouldn't lose the necessity of a long-term tree from the property, and would allow the tree to come out with some kind of plantation of another tree on the property, as well as, I guess, obviously I think you'd want to fix any root damage structure if he has a physical impairment that would be mitigated by the uplifting of the patio.
Okay. This all sounds like great discussion for the commission, but were there any other questions that we wanted to ask Mr. Meitzer about, or do we want to bring it back to the commission and make some determinations at this point? And your hand's still up, so I don't know if you were finished. I apologize. And you're mute. Personally, I can't wait till we can all meet in public, okay? Crazy, but Sarah, did you have something more you wanted to say?
Which Sarah are you talking to?
I'm talking to Sarah Burling because your hand again.
Well, I'm hoping it's back to us now. And it seems to me that we're having there's some agreement toward the tree.
I have another question for the Meitzers before we bring this back, please.
Sure, go ahead, JC.
Thanks. So, Mr. Meitzner, have you prepared a landscaping plan at all, or a general plan for your intention of replacing that patio piece at all? And has that been presented to the forester or anyone else?
I spent a month in the hospital all of February. I got Parkinson's, congestive heart failure. I've got COPD. I had an atrial fibber, or whatever it is, done in February. I've been in the hospital more than I've been home. I don't have to do anything. And that's what I'm saying. My wife is going to get stuck with this, and it's not right. After 46 Here's a Mary, she deserves better.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I believe Sarah Berlin was making some comments when she got cut off, so you might want to recognize her again.
Sarah? Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I had thought we had brought it back to us. And I think that we need to look at the idea that this tree needs to come down. Maybe they need to plant another one. But to me, the quality of life of the human is important here. And that's where I am.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this? Do we want to make a motion? Or are we ready to do that? Or do we want to discuss other ideas about take the tree out, replace the tree? Do we need to see a landscape plan or not? Do we just want to make sure that a tree of what size is replaced? And I would love to hear a motion.
Go ahead, JC.
JC, I see your hand.
Thanks. I mean, in that we're bringing this back in for discussion, and I think a
Yes.
couple of things have to be considered, and without a doubt, we need to be concerned about the health and safety of the residents of our city. There's no question about that. That the tree itself is posing the health dangers here, I'm not so sure that it can't be remedied through something simpler than taking out a 35-year-old tree that's been identified as healthy and replace it with a brand new tree that'll take another 35 years to look like that. It sure seems to me like we could encourage the Meitzner's to come up with a different solution. We didn't get to see any specific comments or written proposals from any contractors regarding what it would take to do something different. Those pavers that he currently has are huge. And I think that I'm leaning towards certainly what our forester's opinion is on ways in which strategies in which to keep our trees in our city, while at the same time making sure that the health of our residents are, remain intact. And so that's just my current thought on this.
I can't unmute. There we go. Am I still muted? Anybody else have anything they want to talk about on this issue, or do we want to make a recommendation? Sarah?
Yeah, well, I'd like to make a motion, and that is that we allow the Meinsters to take down this tree, to plant a similar one in some other part of his yard. I haven't seen this whole yard. And that recognizing his health, the family's age, and et cetera.
I have a question. So to JC's point, you take a 35-year-old big, beautiful tree out and you plant a new one and we wait 35 more years before we're back where we were. That's number one. I think Ramey mentioned the location, and I saw that in the pictures too, that it looks like it might be infringing on a fence on the next door neighbor's yard. But I'm wondering, and we've been to that site before as a group and seen it. I'm wondering where else on some of these small lots you can plant a tree and not run into the same issue 35 years from now. And it just seems like a very difficult issue. And so I guess if somebody wants to propose something else, or if somebody wants to second Sarah's motion. Betty, I see Betty's hand up.
Well, we got.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing is the cost. Right now, the cost would be, well, it's almost prohibitive. We're retired teachers. We don't make a lot of money. We paid for this house back in 1992, under 400 grand for this house. And the house next door just sold for 2.6 million or something. So financially, it would be a hardship, as well as my medical. That's a hardship. My wife being a caregiver, it's just so much hardship. And these are my golden years. I just don't realize it, I guess. I just, that area is too small for a big tree. You wouldn't plant a redwood there. You wouldn't plant another magnolia there. You might plant, well, not a pine tree, but it's got to be something like a, I don't know, something that doesn't have a big trunk. And it is going up against the fence, and the fence was expensive. So there's a money consideration here as well as a health consideration. And I do like what they say about the health and well-being of our residents is the top priority for the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea. I wish I had my health and I wish I had my well-being. I don't right now. I could get my well-being back if I was left to straighten out my house so it didn't start getting roots into the plumbing and under the patios. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. JC, did you want to say something more? I see your hand.
Back, probably I was within the group talking to Sarah's, Sarah, in the consideration of these trees, when honestly, I mean, the demographics of our town, we have lots of potential issues with our citizenry and having issues with roots, and I feel like it would be a bad precedent to be setting to say that it's okay to take a tree out when there aren't other opportunities. And I feel like those opportunities, we haven't really seen other things explored here, and understanding the circumstances around the Meitzner's and health in and out of hospital, all those things at the same time. The rush to take the tree out doesn't seem to be, it seems like there's a lot of other things that really have to be done. And I just feel like while those other things need to be done, there could be another solution besides taking this tree out. And I'm open to hear from the rest of you, and my mind's open about it. I certainly don't, I feel for the situation that the Meitzers are in, but I also want to be respectful for our entire community and our trees in our community.
Well, my recollection of when we all went to see this tree and when this came before the commission the last time, we kind of tabled it because we wanted to see what other options or solutions there might be. And to JC's point, we haven't really seen anything substantial regarding a plan to either replace the tree or to do whatever construction work might be necessary to save the tree. There's nothing really formally in this presentation. And so I don't know, do you table it again and ask for more information or ask to see if there are other options. This is just really difficult, especially with, the health issues and the fact that I see too many trees coming out as it is. And then you have a big, beautiful, healthy one. And it's very difficult to want to take that tree out. Brian, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I guess, so listening to this and taking into consideration as well, the primary objective of all of our committees for the health and well-being of our residents, what other options could the city, advise or provide support to the Meisners in mitigating his costs with keeping the tree in place, whether it's through the forestry department or through the city's services, to mitigate his out-of-pocket to keep a tree in place and correct any possible problems that are going on with his patio, so that he's in a situation where we can be supportive of that. I know. Do we have solutions in that regard that we can provide that kind of support to someone as a resident that needs the support of our city and or our Forest and Beach Commission to be supportive of his need and our wants to keep a tree in the city? I know it's not a public tree, it is a private tree on his property, but it sounds like the circumstances of this are that, he doesn't have the resources, and he's at an age where if he had some support from the city and we have a want to maintain or keep that tree in place, what could we provide to him in the way of some support to mitigate his issues?
Sarah Davis, your hand is up. Did you want to?
Yeah. So it is a private property tree. If there would be a replacement for it, there's not a lot of options for where it could go. In the backyard, there's a very steep slope and there are already trees planted there. And the street is a dead end. So if an emergency vehicle did have to get to the house that's further to the east of Mr. Reitzer's house, it would be very difficult for that emergency vehicle to be able to quickly leave that dead-ended area. Additionally, there's a drainage that comes through there too. So I would imagine at some point there could be a decent amount of water that could come through this area in that drainage channel that could potentially overflow into the area. So there's not that also kind of precludes from where a new tree could go. So the only thing that I could think of is if the city were to plant a new tree in the public right of way between the Meitzner's house and the house directly to the west, where an oak tree fell over about a year or so ago. So we could accommodate a replacement tree in the right of way. As for programs to assist individuals with city funds for this sort of thing, I'm not aware of any of those programs being available, but I would defer to Bob on that.
Oh, I'm not on mute. Yeah, we can't spend public dollars on private property. What I'm hearing from Sarah is that there's no room, no other location to put another tree on his lot. So maybe our recommendation, Sarah and I, could be to, well, it's up to the commission, of course, but perhaps a possible motion would be removal of the tree, or grant approval to remove the tree, and the applicant would pay the cost of planting a new tree, which the city would in the public right of way where there is room. And the cost for planting trees is still at $250. So that is one, that might be one option where it's more of a win-win.
Right. JC, your hand's up.
Thanks, Darlene. Bob, do we have the ability to return the permit fee to remove the tree to the applicant?
I believe the answer is yes. That's part of one of many issues that we're reviewing with the city attorney as to what authority that this commission has. So there's still a little bit of gray area there to resolve. But I think based on past precedent, yes, you could waive the permit fee, or within reason, obviously.
Okay, Darlene, I'd like to make a motion. My motion is to support the forester's position to not have this tree removed, to return the permit fee back to the owner until such a time that they can bring back with a new permit, some different plans. That's my motion.
Can Will speak, please?
I'm sorry.
Will would like to say something.
Who would? I'm sorry. My screen's a little bit mixed up right now. I see.
Mr. Meitzer would like.
Mr. Meitzer's hand is up. Is this an appropriate time for him to address us with more information?
I don't think so. I think.
I'm sure, yeah. I think the opportunity for the applicant to speak and to answer questions has expired.
Okay.
And not only that, I was going to ask Leslie. I believe Commissioner Burling had a motion. There was no second or anything. Doesn't that have to be resolved first before JC's motion is discussed?
I basically just put it that it died due to lack of a second.
Okay,
so then JC's would be the second motion. And then if we don't get a second on that one, then that would die due lack of a second also.
Okay.
Okay, and then what happens? We have to come up with another motion.
Or Madam Chair, you might ask if there is a second to JC's motion.
Is there a second to JC's motion? And Leslie, can you read that back to me? Just it seemed like if you could read it back just so I can understand it one more time. JC's.
Yeah. He is in support of the city forester's recommendation to deny the application to remove the magnolia tree and to return the permit fee to the applicant until they come back with a plan of other options.
I can second that. Sarah?
No, I was going to say something else. No.
I will second JC's motion.
Okay, we have a first and a motion and a second, so roll call. Sarah Burling.
No.
Okay, hold on. Darlene Mosley.
Yes.
JC Myers.
Yes.
Brian Sowers.
No.
Well, it fails because we have a tie.
Okay. Sarah?
Yes, I'd like to suggest that we look at Bob's proposal as a motion. I know that one of us probably has to say it, although I think you did a great job. That sounds quite reasonable to me. Should we have Leslie read it, or do you?
Did you want me to restate it, or
Yeah, anything.
I'll restate it, but I'll ask you to repeat after me or something.
Go word by word then.
The motion would be to approve the applicant's request, applicant's request to remove the tree, and that the applicant would also pay the standard $250 fee for in lieu, which the city would use to plant the tree within the public right of way.
Okay, so I'm moving to approve the removal request by the Meitzers to remove the tree, and he would include a $250 fee to the city in lieu of the tree going out. You said it better, but that was close.
The $250 would be for the mitigation so that a replacement tree can be planted, and unfortunately it can't be planted on his lot, so we'll plant it in the public right of way.
Please add his words, Leslie. Any second?
Ryan Sowers, I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So Burling,
Yes.
Myers,
No.
Sowers,
Yes.
Mosley,
Your mute's on, darling.
You're on mute, Darlene.
I'm trying, am I open now? Yes. Yes.
Yes.
motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. We will go to our next item under public hearings.
I wonder if Mr. Meitzer,
Pardon me?
Mr. Meitzer understands we finished it.
Mr. Meitzer will approve the permit to remove the tree, and you'll pay an in lieu fee of $250, and that will go to planting a new tree in the public right of way.
That the city will plant that new tree.
Okay. We're agreeable to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. You guys did take in the health and the well-being of our residents as a top priority. I appreciate that. Yep, it's a beautiful place to live.
Okay, you can hop on off now if you'd like, or you can state it for the rest of the meeting. It's up to you.
Okay. All right. So we'll go on to our next public hearing. Are we ready? The approval or denial of an application to remove an acacia at the southwest corner of Camino Real and Ocean Avenue. Need a report from Sarah.
Alrighty, our applicant is Mr. Lee, and he has applied to remove a private property acacia tree on the southwest corner of Camino Real and Ocean Avenue, and it's between his house and his neighbor's house to the south, but the tree is on Mr. Lee's property. The tree is in good health, but it does have some structural issues due to some poor pruning in the past. It's been topped, so there's a lot of bushy growth at the top that is poorly attached, and it's prone to breakage. Their consulting arborist agrees that the tree is in fairly good health. However, it does have structural issues. And the tree itself, the crown where the trunk goes into the ground, is about 3 feet away from the nearest structure. So let me share my screen real quick, and we can see the pictures here. So here you can see the tree. Most of the foliage that you're seeing is the pine tree that's behind it. So just be aware of that. So it's kind of, it looks like it's doubled up. And here you can see the tree is about 3 feet away from the structure of Mr. Lee's garage. You can see it's smack in between the houses there, very close to both structures, and causing disturbances to the driveway so far, with damage to the structure being pretty predictive. And you'll see here that there is plenty of space for more upper canopy trees to be planted, either in the setback in the front yard or in the public right of way. There's no overhead lines or anything like that. The area isn't being used for parking actively because the plants aren't damaged close to the road. So it's my recommendation that we permit the removal of the acacia, which is not native and causing structural damage, and request that the applicant plant at least one upper canopy tree, but there is room for 2. Are there any questions?
I don't see any hands up.
Mr. Lee, are you on the line?
Yes. Yes.
You have to unmute.
Am I
We
unmuted?
can hear him.
Can you hear me now? Okay, good. And yeah, just what Sarah said is what we're up against. Is just it's in danger of our foundation and the neighbors, and we're willing to plant a tree to compensate.
All right. Any questions at all from the commission? Anyone else from the public want to speak on this? Then do we want to bring it back to the commission for discussion, please? JC?
Hi there. I'm right now currently sitting with the forester and the notion that at least one, but ideally 2 trees could be planted in proximity of the property, either both on the property itself and then the public right of way. And the tree, from the pictures and from actually seeing it, it does look as if it has potential for structural impact on the home. And so anyway, I'm here to support the forester's position. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to make a comment, make a motion?
Is there any comments from the public?
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion. I make the motion that we approve the permit request with the stipulation that 2 trees are planted on the property, or in the one on the property and one in the right of way, as agreed upon between the homeowner and our forester.
I'll second that motion.
Furling,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Stowers,
Yes.
Mosley.
Yes.
Approved. Thank you.
Thank you. So, sorry, I'm running back and forth on this agenda on my iPad, trying to keep up with it. Okay. We have one other public hearing, and it's to determine a determination of the number of new trees required for the redevelopment of the Colonial Terrace at the northeast corner of San Antonio Street and 13th Avenue. So, Sarah, can you give us your report?
Sure thing. So the Colonial Terrace is a development, and it's in design review right now. So the plans are very preliminary. It's going to be remodeled. It's proposed to be remodeled, and it'll be renamed to the Carmel Beach Hotel and Spa. So the property is approximately 34,000 square feet, and the code says that once a parcel goes over 8,000 square feet, the Forest and Beach Commission will be required to determine the number of trees that the property will have. So if you took the chart, the table of the recommended densities of trees based on square footage, it comes out to be that there'd be a tree per 1,000 square feet of land cover. So with one large tree being one upper canopy tree required more than a lower. So if you require one lower, you'd end up with two uppers that go with it. So the property is mostly of historic structures, and the building footprints aren't going to change. Proposed right now. The exterior will be redone, and there'll be some hardscape changes made to accommodate individuals with disabilities. The site plan is attached in your packet. The lot is surrounded on two sides with transmission lines, which makes it difficult to include large trees at the perimeters of the property to the south and to the west. There are no significant ocean views from uphill side, the east side of the terrace, so large trees aren't going to be blocking anyone's view. So based on all of those factors, well, let me back up. There are 5 upper canopy trees on site now and 5 lower canopy trees on site right now. There's also 5 palm trees, but based on how tall they are and how small the canopies are, I'm not counting those as trees themselves. They're to the point in their lifespan that the falling fronds and debris from the trees can be very dangerous, as well as they're very dangerous to remove the fronds from for a tree worker. So they're at the end of their useful lifespan. So taking the trees into account, the building footprints, it looks like the site can accommodate a total of 19 trees. So that would be a good fit. So that would be 11 total upper trees and 8 lower trees. But based on the recommendation from the code, they should have about 34 trees. So I'm proposing we reduce that number to 19. And if the commission so wishes, we could make up the difference, the balance, up to 34 using the cash in lieu fee. So I know that was extremely confusing. Are there questions? JC?
Hello there, Forester Sarah. My question is, when you've come up with your 19 proposed upper and lower canopy combined, your methodology there again would be, how did you go about coming up with that number?
Yeah, so what I did is I took their site plan and I have marked where the existing trees are now. And then I looked at placing new mature trees into that footprint. So to get large trees to maturity with the constraints of those electric lines, that's about what would reasonably fit without being overly dense or impinging on the transmission lines.
Great, thank you.
So I believe we have the project manager developer on the line.
Yes, hi Sarah. This is Matt with WR&D Architects, and Mike Arnone, the landscape architect, is also on the call. So yeah, this is part of a bigger renovation of the interior rooms too, but the exterior improvements are mainly driven by, this is a difficult site as it steps down towards San Antonio. There's a lot of existing paving out there, and it's a pretty significant slope. But the exterior improvements are primarily driven by the accessibility upgrades that the property will need. But also we do want to beautify, it's a beautiful location, and so we're also trying to beautify the site and also be replanting it. And then Mike Arnone, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. And the last I will say, we have developed the plans more than what was included with the packet. And that I did send just last week, so just recently, but we have more developed plans that we can show today or for the next meeting. And Mike, did you want to add anything to that?
Hi, everybody. I don't have a whole lot to add. I think Sarah's, assessment is good. It is a tough site, in terms of large scale trees because of the power lines, on the west side, and also the, trying not to block people's views, from the neighborhood on the east side. So the large canopy trees that are already there, we, are going to stay. If we need to, meet the regulations about the more large canopy, again, it's going to be a challenge to make that happen. But without affecting people's views and trying to avoid the power lines, as I said, if we try to focus more on the low canopy trees, I think that would be an easier thing to achieve. To minimize the impact on the neighbors and also on the power line concerns. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions. Again, as Matt said, there's a more detailed plan that apparently wasn't received, but we have kind of laid out more of the trees and the understory stuff as well.
I have a question. So the trees that are there, the upper canopy trees that are there, are all going to stay?
There's one redwood, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 Monterey cypress, and then there's a very large, spectacular magnolia grandiflora. And those are, I believe, Sarah, the 5 that you recognized?
Yes.
Yeah. And they are all staying, yes.
There are some of the lower canopy trees that aren't in the best condition that if they propose to be removed, wouldn't be unreasonable.
Okay, so again, the ones that are there are staying, and you named 10 trees, correct? And now we're saying that your recommendation is for 19 trees total for this site.
Yes, and they may or may not include the lower story canopy trees that are there now, depending on if they want to retain them or plant new ones.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Do we want to have a discussion on this?
Darlene, did you want to ask, was there any public comment?
Was there any public comment? No? All right. So commissioners, any discussion? JC? My screen is changing. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm certainly in favor of Sarah's proposal about the additional upper and lower to this property. I think that it is at the discretion of the commission once you reach this certain property size for a determination of how many trees make sense on a property. From that, I would prefer to leave it at that without adding any additional in lieu fees. I don't really feel like that the developer should have to do that. I think, again, it's at our discretion, and I really look to the forester to give us the best opinion, put forth our best opinion about what the property can actually maintain or have for a healthy life. So my opinion, I would, after hearing from others, I would want to put forward a motion that would approve this without the condition of the in lieu fees.
Sarah, did you want to say something or no?
No, I was just nodding because I'm agreeing.
Well, having said that, are we ready to make a motion?
It's your turn, JC.
Sure. I'm happy to make the motion. I would make a motion that we approve the forester's recommendation of upper and lower canopy trees for this redevelopment of the site, but exclude a requirement to pay in lieu fees for additional trees.
I second it.
Great. Leslie, we can roll call.
Burling,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Mosley.
Yes.
Approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Other orders of business. Orders of business are agenda items that require city council, board, or commission discussion, debate, direction to staff, and or action. And the first will be our city forester's monthly report for June 2021.
Okay. Hello, everyone again. We removed 3 trees from Devendorf Park this last month. The one by the bathroom on the northeast corner of the park that was growing up through the roof of the structure, it was completely dead, no longer alive. So we did leave the structural interesting part of the tree. So it's still by the bathroom. There's still a part that goes up through the roof, and the foliage of adjacent trees cover the area. So you still get the feeling that there's a tree still there. The other was in the southeast corner of the park by the Devendorf bust. That one had an advanced case of armillaria and was prone to failure at the base. And the third was a redwood that was struggling and it was not going to make it. It was on its way out. And that one we retained the wood and we'll be milling that into timber and potentially turning it into replacement benches in the park. So it had a happy ending. Noticing that we had the second hatching of the oak moth last month. So the birds have been happy eating all the little oak moths. We had some eventful tree failures. We had a large pine on Lincoln between 4th and 5th that failed on a Tuesday, and it was scheduled to be removed by the property owner on a Thursday. So it was on the radar to get taken care of. It did fall and damage the neighbor's carport. The other notable failure we had was on the scenic pathway, and then we'll share some photos with you. This one was kind of interesting. So this tree here, you can see that it was growing away from the water and towards the light. However, doing routine work, we noticed a very large crack in the buttress roots, and it was starting to fall over. So you can see here, we could easily stick a measuring device in it up to 7 inches. If you wiggled it a little more, you could go much further. So the tree was riddled in the heartwood with termites and had portions of the root system being undermined by ground squirrel activity. So we called out some backup, myself and our arborist, Mike Cope, and 2 other board certified master arborists to confirm that this tree was going to fall down and that it needed to come out. So on Scenic Pathway, we take those trees very, very seriously. So you can see more cracking, all that. So that came out. Again, we did retain the wood so that we'll be able to mill that into, again, timber for potential bench replacements. Some of the trees that Ramey mentioned earlier for replacements of cypress on Scenic, there's one that will go right near where this tree came out. It's close to the intersection with the 10th Avenue pathway. We had some fun events with Carmel Cares group. They worked with the children at the youth center in their summer camps to do some community service. They helped pull some weeds up on our roof on the police station plaza, as well as to pull some more weeds and ivy out of Devendorf Park. And they planted some new flowers and such by the 9/11 memorial. So fun was had by all. The kids really enjoyed themselves. And Carmel Cares continues to do their work on Scenic Pathway and at the Forest Theater. And the highlight, according to Bob, is that we removed 37 stumps. So I hear that might be a record. As far as removals and required replanting from permits, nothing spectacularly out of the normal there. Last month was a good month for requiring more trees to be planted. So there were only 2 out of 14 removals that aren't getting replacement trees. So that's positive. And you can see our year to date total. We're at a 37% replanting rate, which again, I'll just point out is skewed a little bit from a number in February where 18 small trees were taken out of one property. So that number is a little bit artificially lower. Our city crews are chugging right along, doing lots of work. Again, we got all those stumps out and did some large removals of pines that were in decline from bark beetles. So we're about a week out from being proactive and being able to start a grid pruning rotation. So we'll be able to start focusing on pruning of trees for structure and street clearance instead of putting out fires and doing removals. So I feel like that's a pretty big success. So we got through the backlog in a year and a half, and now we'll be able to start working more proactively. So that's pretty exciting. Do you have any questions or comments? JC.
Hello, Forester Sarah. My question would be in regards to requiring replantings. Are your recommendations on replantings right now for the latter part of the year, so that you might make a recommendation, but the replanting isn't actually going to take place until the fall, or what's the schedule look like as it relates to request or suggestions on the replantings?
Yeah, so some of the permits, they change over the course of a month or a couple of months. For example, someone might take out a large tree and I require them to plant, say, 2 upper canopy trees because that would meet the density requirement for the lot. but they might come back and negotiate and say, well, I'll plant an upper, but I'd also like to plant a lower. So over time, the numbers in the past months might change just a little bit. So when we're issuing the permit, we're documenting the number of trees that we're requiring. And then we go through each month and update the list as those changes happen. So, and then we're going back a month after and re-inspecting. So if for some reason over the course of several months, the trees don't get planted that are required, then we're challenging that applicant to get that tree planted and meet the requirements of their permit. So it's kind of an ongoing rolling process of data collection.
Got it. But so I understand correctly, then what you're saying is when you do issue that permit for whatever it might be and you require replanting, it gets noted at that time in that month, even though the replanting might be taking place at a later date. So it's not as if at the end of the year, we're going to suddenly see a whole, like a big influx or big curve of plantings taking place, unless the city chooses to do that on city property.
Right. So I try to go quarterly and update the numbers on things that we've confirmed that have been replanted. So I should have another batch of those to report on, I think, here in this next month in August. Brian?
Yeah, hi, Sarah. Just on that topic. So are you keeping, like, let's say permits have been issued over the last 4 years for tree removals with replanting requirements. Is there a flow chart that we can see of those trees that were permitted to be removed? How many have been checked for the fact that they've been replaced or not?
I wouldn't say it's a flow chart, but I can pull that data out of Tree Keeper, my inventory software. So what I'll do each month is I'll query what needs to be inspected and assign those out to someone to go look for them. And then once they're initially planted, then I'll schedule the annual replanting for the next year. So I can pull that all out and provide numbers if that's something that you would like to see. But,
so the only reason I'm even bringing this up is because I took out a large Monterey pine and was required to plant 2 upper canopy trees, and no one's ever checked my replanting. So I'm just, again, just because I'm one of a takedown of Monterey pine and have never been followed on a check on my replantings for the 2 upper canopy trees that I needed to replant. I'm just asking the question because I was never followed through from my permit to make sure that they get replanted.
Let me check here. I'll check your house.
Sounds like you better get his address.
not to bet my I'm just questioning it because I've never been checked, and I would love to know that we're doing that. And just as a second on that is, I've gotten a lot of nice feedback from certain residents around the city I've talked with about the really nice job you guys are doing, Sarah, with your team being responsive to issues around the city in regards to trees and stumps and everything else. All the feedback I'm getting from people is very positive. So I just wanted to thank you for your team's efforts, because it's definitely being noted by a lot of the residents, and that's a positive thing.
Oh, great. Thank you. Not one thing, just to put JC on the spot, just to check back in on the idea of the public outreach campaign, just kind of as an update to the rest of the commission. Do you have anything new to tell us about?
Well, sure. I can let you guys know that our ad hoc committee has met, and we had a nice 1.5 hour discussion around some coffee and some treats from Rise and Roam. And then we were dismissed with tasks to bring back to our little ad hoc committee. And those tasks are to identify at least 1, 2, or 3, hopefully, different ad related type agencies and what kinds of information they can and proposals they can provide us to bring back to the commission. I believe that Ramey has told me that she's got 2 in the works. I also have had 1 official proposal submitted and have a second one through conversations with Dale. I actually met with Dale Byrne from Carmel Cares, and kind of indirectly through him, some more information coming. So I believe by our next meeting, we'll make sure it's an agenda item and have an opportunity to discuss and present what we've come up with so far. So yeah, there you go. Not on the spot. Always happy to be on the spot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for Sarah?
One thing I forgot to add, for Arbor Day, since we removed one of the trees in Devendorf Park, we now have a spot for our Arbor Day tree that's more interior in the park, and it'll be able to accommodate a redwood tree, which we're hoping to plant in honor of Barbara Livingston.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Bob, are you ready to give us our Director of Public Works report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Starting off with City Council actions, the council met on Tuesday night, July the 6th. Just 2 items that pertain to forest, beach, and park related items. First is the council approved a $45,000 grant that we won a grant for fuel abatement at Mission Trails Nature Preserve, and it's from the California Coastal Conservancy. So that's a big feather in our cap, because we need all the money we can get to keep the fire fuel at bay. The second one is kind of, I mentioned it to Sarah, she kind of said that was a very strange thing to mention to the Forest and Beach Commission, but the alternative would be even worse. So the council approved a 6-month extension to our janitorial services contract. And the janitors cleaned the bathrooms of the parks. We have 7 different restrooms, and they will be cleaning them every day for the next 6 months. The alternative would be is no one would clean them for the next 6 months. So that's why we're pretty happy that they approved that. Moving on to capital projects. We resumed work in our annual paving project. We skipped a year last year because of COVID. This is the paving project that includes the controversial median islands on San Carlos between 11th and 13th Avenues. There was a public meeting at Sunset Center a 1.5 years ago about identified 2 to 3 larger medians that could happen. And there's a mixed audience. Some people hate the idea. A lot of people don't want to lose any parking on the sides of San Carlos. So there's a lot of concern there. But anyway, we're moving forward. We'll have a second public meeting where we're going to show the 3 large median islands like we did the first time around, but also an alternative of up to 6 small median islands. So what I've asked Sarah to do is for hopefully the next Forest and Beach Commission meeting in August, we have a rendering and get your commission's input into those options. I'll take that to the open public meeting, and we'll get any kind of final feedback and hopefully make a decision somewhere at that point, so we can go on with the rest of the project. We're just starting now to advertise for a project manager, which we lost due to COVID a year ago. This project manager will be quite a few projects. I think I mentioned the last couple of times, parks and parks related projects that we certainly need help with. So at least the ball is starting to roll now to get a new person to help us catch up on all the now funded projects. One of the informal miscellaneous projects that went into Sarah's operating budget, is a beautification project, preferably for her in the downtown area. So I won't spoil any surprises. Sarah has a couple of ideas now. We might be putting in a survey in the CHIPS Friday letter, try to solicit some comments back on what some options are. This would be only preliminary information. Take it back to the Forest and Beach Commission to kind of hopefully narrow it down a little bit, here's a couple of options. We have, say, $20,000 for beautification. You know, it doesn't have, we don't have to spend all 20, but also 20 limits what we can really do. So anyway, so we'll bring that back at the next commission meeting or two on that one. Moving on to the climate committee meetings. The next one is a week from today, July 15th at 3:30. This will be presenting the final draft of the vulnerability study, which I've asked Anya Spartale, who's our environmental compliance manager, to present that to the Forest and Beach Commission, possibly in a couple of months. That's a wide-ranging report, but it does cover wildfires, it does cover sea level rise, it does cover stronger storms, and I think it would be a good information sharing with the commission. So that's coming up. In terms of volunteer organizations, I think we already talked about Carmel Cares quite a bit, and they've been doing a great job for us. Something that's going to be happening before this next commission meeting is they came up with a design for these like 5x7, I think, cards, very professional looking. They're going to put 40 out on a temporary basis on 40 medians. 20 or so will say, this median island is being maintained by Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The other 20 are going to be, this median is available. If you would like to adopt this median, please contact Carmel Cares. So we already have approval from planning to do this pilot project of getting that out there. We're hoping that that solicits a lot of interest and gets more people involved with maintaining a median near them. So that's good news. Other miscellaneous items, the last week and a half, we've been pushing sand around on the beach, as JC and Brian Noel. Today we finished off adding sand to the volleyball courts, so it's a lot more level than it was. We pushed up some sand to cover the large roots at the bottom of some cypress trees. There's a lot of mixed opinions on if that is a good thing or a bad thing, but we've tried it out to see how that works, how that looks, and if that has any impact on the tree or if it helps. And we, of course, we also covered up the sandstone west of Del Mar parking and west of the volleyball courts. We know it's a Band-Aid solution. It's going to erode again and again and again, but at least it's in good shape for the time being. Upcoming meeting, there's a shoreline master plan that was requested last time. So we have a start on it. So it wasn't ready for today. Hopefully next meeting, we'll go over the shoreline master plan that was done many years ago and identify what projects, which is essentially limited, but what few projects were done since that time. And I think it was 2006, Brian, something like that.
Yes.
So we identify what projects were done, where we are today, what projects will need to be funded over the long stretch, as well as a geotechnical survey that was done, I think 2012 or 2014, I can't remember the dates. But there's a lot of project needs on the beach, and my job is to get that up in front of you to identify what has been done, where we are, what needs to be done in the future. And with that, and just a final a little thing, Commissioner Sowers and Councilman Barron and myself and our planning and building director, and I believe Agnes was there too, the environmental compliance manager. We met last week just to kind of see, is there any overlap between the Climate Committee and the Forest and Beach Commission? The answer is really not really. The Forest and Beach Commission's focus is really how the beach is today, near term, short term projects, things that we can do now. Climate Committee is looking for things, 25, 30, 40 years down the road. So maybe there's a little overlap, but that's fine. So I think having the vulnerability study presented to the commission would do a lot to get you guys up to speed on how climate change could impact or will impact the beach and the shoreline. I think that's it, unless Councilman or Commissioner Sowers wants to opine on anything else we talked about at that meeting. Just to be all the commissioners aware that we had this little powwow.
Yeah, so I mean, my takeaway from the meeting, and I appreciate Bob, your and Jeff Barron's participation in getting us involved in this. I mean, I guess in my counter to this to my fellow council members would be to really take a good relook at that shoreline plan that's out on the website, kind of read through it. You know, all of us have an interest and a responsibility as Forest and Beach commissioners to, you know, protect the residents' enjoyment of the beach and the forest. And our prior, you know, city council from going back 20 years ago, as well as all the public works departments, other city and residents put together a fairly sizable effort to put that shoreline management plan together. And I think it's kind of prudent on us as Forest and Beach commissioners to retake a look at that plan and get some feedback from Bob about what's been done since the 20 years of, you know, kind of post timeline against that plan and what has or hasn't taken place. And is there anything we can do as Forest and Beach commissioners to kind of move the needle back onto maybe what was more committed to 20 years ago by the city and the, you know, the committees and commissioners from a prior, you know, city administrations to, you know, kind of move the shoreline management plan forward and kind of and get a flavor for is there something we can do today, whether it's short term to longer term to support going back on that plan and trying to move it forward. I think there's a lot of work that could be done and whether or not we have the time and energy and want to participate in kind of moving that bar forward. And I think, again, some of the recap that Bob will be able to give us at the next meeting can kind of get us thinking about how we can participate in a way that will be, you know, beneficial to the environment of both the beach and the forest on a go-forward basis.
So anyway, that completes my report. If there's any other questions.
Hey, Bob, I had a quick question. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Darlene is okay. Thanks for addressing the sand accretion on the Del Mar Dunes and certainly at the in and around the volleyball court areas. Is there an intention at this point to do any type of temporary protective barrier along the top of that Del Mar Dune before it drops down to the actual beach, or basically kind of what we see is where we're going to leave it until we get some additional studies?
It's not a matter of studies. No, we have no intention of roping it off. Okay. Those are part of all we need to do is get a new coastal development plan for all the activities we're doing on our beach. The old plan has expired. So even pushing sand around is a little iffy, quite frankly. But we're going to put that together. That would identify what we really can do. If we just go to the Coastal Commission tomorrow and say, hey, we want to rope this area off, I think we'd have not a good outcome with that meeting. So there's a lot of tentacles to this issue.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I wasn't thinking that you were planning to rope it off per se, but just kind of creating a deterrent for the head down the middle of the hill running and rolling. But I understand that that could be a Coastal Commission consideration. And thanks again for getting done what you've got done. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any other questions? Brian, is your hand up again?
Yeah, I just wanted to reply back to JC on this. I mean, I think that if Bob, as a part of our next meeting, can give us some updates about, what's been done, where we're at with the Coastal Commission and some of these other issues, I think about what we could do on a more short-term basis about sand redistribution. If that's a go-to plan for us, that might be one of the recommendations that we as a commissioner group could bring forward, whether it's to the city council and the mayors and the public works department. We could spearhead some of that if that's one of the targets that, as Bob said, that we could bring to the table and spearhead ahead. I think we have some capability to get that needle moved in the right direction. That's my 2 cents.
Sarah? Sarah, your hand's up. It's not up? Yes. Am I muted?
There. Okay. So to answer the question, Commissioner Sowers asked, are we checking his tree? And your permit was before I got my system, but I can show you the tree across the street. So this is what we do. So we inspected the tree because someone applied for a permit in July of 2020. The permit was actually issued with a replanting the next month. Then we went back and found the tree in September of 2020. And then we have an outstanding inspection to go check on it again here in 2021. So that's kind of the work path.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. So from what I understand from that is Brian didn't know that all of that was happening. And so I have a question. This was brought to me by a neighbor. They said that they've lived here forever. And in the past, when a permit was given to take down a tree, like a diseased oak tree, let's say, there was some sort of warning, or not warning, but notification like we do when somebody's going to do construction on a house. There's a Carmel-by-the-Sea little thing saying, these people are going to add a garage or whatever, and these people are going to take down a tree because it has, a rotten base or the roots are gone. And do we do that anymore, or is there a process for that?
If I may, the city administrator talked to me about that very topic a couple of hours ago. So I haven't gotten Sarah up to speed yet, but I certainly will. But the thought is when there's a permit application or a permit is approved, that it's posted on the tree before it's removed, which might give people comfort that, it was okay to remove that particular tree. Or people, alert citizens are looking, how can we remove the tree? Where's the notice? So, similar to like the building permit process. If you're seeing a house under construction, there should be a permit posted somewhere. So we'll do something like that.
I had this happen to me this week. The house next door to us, I woke up to chainsaws and went out there and very happy to see that it was taupes, which I know was what we do here. And I said, gee, I hope you guys have a permit, because I had no idea that this tree was coming down. And the gentleman said, oh, absolutely, we have the permit. Would you like to see it? I said, no, that's not a problem. And I said, what's wrong with this tree? He showed me, and that tree could have fallen over into my yard real easily because it was literally rotten at the base. And so, as a concerned neighbor, and to have the conversation you had, Bob, just 2 days later, somebody came to me and said, hey, we used to do this. Why don't we do this anymore? And I just thought I'd mention it at the meeting.
Oh, thank you for doing that.
Hey, does anybody else have anything else they want to add before we talk about, do we want to add future agenda items? Anybody have something they want to talk about there? Ryan?
Brian's on mute.
So when I had my trees taken out, as a part of my permit that I received was a green sheet, and it was required for me to put that sheet onto the tree and leave it out there. I don't know if it was 48 hours, some timeline as instruction on the permit was listed, so that anyone that was walking by it could see it, read it, and make it, if they had any issues with the tree coming out, they could see it was permitted. I think isn't that a requirement today, Sarah, with anyone who gets a tree, deal? Isn't it supposed to be posted on the tree?
Yeah, but the pandemic happened. So it used to be that the permit was printed on a green piece of paper, and then the applicant had to come pick it up at City Hall. And they'd also get a special tag to put on any tree that they planted that was required. So since the pandemic happened, kind of just didn't enforce that part, because a lot of people don't have printers at their house or have fancy green paper. So I let that go. But if that's something that we want to continue to have happen, we can start it back up again. It's super fast to email a permit.
I think it gives the residents that are in the neighboring environment the opportunity to understand what's going on with a particular tree. And again, just to Darlene's point, if Topes was taking out a tree, it would have been nice that she had known or could have walked by and seen that there was a permit on it to remove it prior to them just coming in and cutting it away. I think that's always a question that I ask when I see Topes or some other arborist cutting at the tree, and I have no idea what's going on with that tree per se. Why are they cutting? Do you have a permit? No one's going to ask unless you had some kind of posting on that tree to know what was going on with that tree setup. So I don't know, it just lets the residents know that there's some kind of monitoring going on from your department and with permitting that it's okay to do it. Because we have a lot of, whether it's Topes or any of these other guys running around, trimming trees all over the place.
I have super spidey senses that alerts me to the sound of chainsaws.
JC, did you want to say something?
Well, I just think to reinforce what both of the commissioners that are speaking on this have said, I believe that a permit should be put up and should be available. And if the time frame is 48 hours pre-pandemic, it still should be that. I don't think the Planning Commission, I've done some recent projects that I've had through the Planning Commission, and I've been required to put up my permit. And so it shouldn't be any different, honestly, with the trees. And then to the other question or point about when trees are going to be taken down, and notes being put up, like especially city trees. I've seen some recently, so I think we've been doing it. I don't know if it's everywhere, but it sure seems like there's like is it a red piece of paper, Sarah, that you put up on some trees? No?
Oh, I put up some signs that are yellow for trees.
Maybe
that
yellow.
PG&E was going to take out, so that people would stop calling me asking me if the trees were going to ever get taken out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Oh, well, I didn't know if that was just something new that you were doing or something that had been going on for a while. So anyway, that's all I have.
Right. Future agenda items, are we ready to adjourn? JC?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And I'm happy we're all going to see each other next time, because
2 months.
Too long.
2 months.
Next month we'll do the tour of inspection together, if there needs to be one, and then we go to our homes or offices and call in and do this again.
Right.
Second time we do the tour and meet in person.
Awesome.
So we gotta.
Take care. Thank you. Meetings adjourned.
Thank you all.
Bye.
So.